Dr. Arnaldo Olivera. I'm at New Hope Health Transformational Ministries, and we're going to talk about the immune system. So what is the immune system? Where is the immune system? What does the immune system do? We're also going to talk about a little bit about vaccinations because it has to do with the immune system. We're going to talk about disorders of the immune system and the gut and the immune system, and also about inflammation and antioxidants. Without an immune system, a human being would be just as exposed to harmful influence of pathogens or other substances from outside environment as to changes harmful to health happening inside the body. The immune system protects the body from invaders such as viral and bacterial infections. It is made of different organs, cells, and proteins that work together. All immune system cells come from precursors in the bone marrow and develop into mature cells through a series of changes that can occur in different parts of the body. For example, the skin is usually the first line of defense against microbes. Skin cells produce and secrete important antimicrobial proteins and immune cells that can be found in specific layers of the skin. The bone marrow, which I mentioned before, contains stem cells, and these stem cells can develop into a variety of cell types. The common myeloid progenitor stem cell in the bone marrow is the precursor of the innate immune system, which will generate cells like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, mast cells, monocytes, dendritic cells, and macrophages. Some of the cells you probably heard about. Your doctor talked to you about it, or you saw in your blood test. The bloodstream is also the house of the immune system, because it carries immune cells that are constantly circulating through the bloodstream. And of course, we have the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is a network of vessels and tissues composed of lymph and cellular fluid and lymphoid organs such as the lymph nodes. The lymphatic system helps to drain some of the byproducts of inflammation. We have the spleen. The spleen is an organ located behind your stomach and on the left side-ish. While it's not directly connected to the lymphatic system, it is an important organ for processing information from the bloodstream. Immune cells are enriched in specific areas of the spleen, and the spleen also activates and responds to inflammation and infection accordingly. And we have also the mucosal tissue. Your oral mucosa, your gastric mucosa, your conjunctival mucosa, for example, are surfaces of primary entry points for pathogens. So this tissue is specialized immune hubs for cells that will defend your body. For instance, the Peyer's patches in the intestines are important areas where immune cells can access samples from the gastrointestinal tract. So in this slide, we see this different organs that house the immune system. But what does the immune system do? So all immune cells the immune system can be activated by many foreign substances, and these are called antigens. The proteins on the surfaces of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, for example, are all antigens. When the antigens bind to special receptors on the defense cells, a series of cell processes is started. Then the immune system can recall, store memories in order to quickly be ready to defend against known pathogens. So pathogens can be a virus or a bacteria, but also a damage caused by trauma. If you have trauma, your immune system will react to that trauma by generating an immune response in the form of inflammation. So basically, we have two immune systems. We have one immune system that is the immune system that we are born with. We call the innate immune system, and we have the immune system that is the immune system that retains memory from other infections. And that's basically how vaccines will work on the second immune system, the acquired immune system. We may also call adaptive immune system. These two immune systems do not work independently. They work together, and they complement each other. And they're connected to each other closely, because the cells from the innate immune system will also benefit from the cells that are created in the acquired or adaptive immune system. An example of cells from the immune system, we have basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils. Basophils and eosinophils are important for a host defense against parasites. Eosinophils also play a role in allergic reactions. Neutrophils are a little different. They are more numerous than the other two, and they are the first responders to inflammation. When you have inflammation, the sentinel cells from the tissue signal to the bloodstream that we have a problem there, and the immune system sends the neutrophils, and the neutrophils go after and surround the pathogen, and then send a signal back to the immune system and they call for monocytes to come in. Those monocytes come in and take this whole toxic load down to the drain, which is the lymphatic system. But an example of the adaptive or acquired immune system is another type of cell that you guys probably have heard about, which is called the natural killer cells. Natural killer cells have features of both the innate and the adaptive immune system. We also have B cells, T cells, and T cells are CD8 cells, CD4 cells, things that you might have heard about. We also have a T cell subsets that we call TH1, TH2, TH17. Those are more new types of cells that we came to know in the past 20 years, and also know what they actually do in the immune system. So let's talk about vaccination. Vaccination is an important public health too. So we are not against vaccination itself, but we are very concerned in the way that they manufacture vaccines, with things inside the vaccines that might harm our kids and our elderly and adults as they need to take vaccines. There are basically 4 types of vaccines. They can use live viruses vaccines, which use weakened or what they call attenuated form of the virus, like for example measles, mumps, rubella, MMR is I just said, measles, mumps, and rubella, and the varicella, which is prevents chickenpox. We have also killed inactivated vaccines that are made from a protein or other small pieces taken from a virus or bacteria. The whooping cough vaccine is an example of inactivated vaccine. We have what we call toxoid vaccines. Toxoid vaccines contain a toxin or a chemical made by the bacteria or a virus. They make you immune to the harmful effects of the infection instead of to the infection itself. Examples of toxoid vaccines are diphtheria and tetanus vaccines. So you don't get immune to the bacteria that causes the infection, but you get immune to the toxin that the bacteria causes in your body. And you have the biosynthetic vaccines. Biosynthetic vaccines contain man-made substances that are very similar to pieces of the virus or bacteria. For example, the hepatitis B, that's a biosynthetic vaccine, 100% man-made. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 15 different vaccines for children to induce protection against several viral and bacterial infections. There are causes of morbidity and mortality. 3 of these vaccines, MMR2, Varivax, and Harvard's, utilize cells lines that they call WY38 or MRC5 that were derived from fetal tissue, harvested from elective abortions. So this is something that we need to talk about because we want to understand why they manufacture specifically these 3 vaccines this way. It's got to be alternative ways to do that, and we all want to make this an open discussion between the public, the scientific community, religious groups, and everybody involved to get a better protection, not only for our kids, but for our elderly and achieve optimum health. Like I said, we're not against vaccines. We're not a crusader against conventional medicine, but we want to be a participant in the discussion in how we take these things. So going back to the immune system, we have many types of disorders of the immune system. We have immune deficiencies, we have allergies, we have autoimmune diseases, we have sepsis, and we have cancer. Immune deficiencies may be temporary or permanent. Temporary immune deficiencies can be caused by a variety of sources that weaken the immune system. Common infections, including influenza and mononucleosis, can suppress the immune system. Allergies is something that everybody knows really well. Allergies are a form of sensitiveness. It's a hypersensitivity reaction, typically in response to harmless environmental allergens like pollen, and as we see, like very often, food. Autoimmune diseases occur when self-tolerance is broken. And then when that happens, the immune system turns against yourself. So you start eating up and attacking your own body. Sepsis refers to an infection of the bloodstream, but also can refer to a systemic inflammatory state caused by the uncontrolled broad release of cytokines that quickly activate immune cells throughout the body. For example, as I explained before, when you have damage in the tissue, the sentinel cells in the tissue will signal the immune system that the damage occurred, that they need help. So they signal the immune system through first one piece of biochemical process called NF-kappa B. So the NF-kappa B triggers inside the sentinel cells a series of cytokines. I just mentioned cytokines in sepsis. And the cytokines will ask the immune system to bring the first responders, which are the neutrophils, to help to circumvent the damage and minimize it, and then hopefully resolve. That's how inflammation should be. But when we have sepsis, we might have a huge response of the inflammatory process because the amount of cytokines that are released in the bloodstream. Lastly, some forms of cancer are directly caused by the uncontrolled growth of the immune cells. Leukemia is a cancer caused by white blood cells, which is another term for immune cells. Lymphoma is a cancer caused by lymphocytes, which is another term for adaptive B cells or T cells. Myeloma is a cancer caused by plasma cells, which are mature B cells. So unrestricted growth of any of these cell types causes cancer. We have different types of mucosal tissues in the body that greatly help us to defend ourselves from invasion. So one of them is called MALT, which is a mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. MALT initiates the immune response to specific antigens encountered along all mucosal surfaces. Every antibody is unique, but they all fall under general categories. You probably heard the term immunoglobulin. So we have immunoglobulin M, immunoglobulin D, G, A, and E. While they have overlapping roles, immunoglobulin M generally is important for complement activation. Immunoglobulin D is involved in activating basophils. Immunoglobulin G is important for neutralization and complement activation. And immunoglobulin A is essential for neutralization in the gastrointestinal tract. And lastly, immunoglobulin E is necessary for activating mast cells in parasitic and allergic responses. So we talk about MALT, and then how the gut relates to the immune system. The gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or gout, is the lymphoid tissue. Is the largest lymphoid tissue in the body, and is the primary route from which we are exposed to antigens from bacteria, viruses, or food. So in this slide, you see that the red arrows highlight the interactions that a specific bacterium strains establish with the intestinal barrier. The number one, modulation of tight junctions, proteins. The number two is the modulation of the mucus secretion. And the number three is the relationships established between different bacterial populations and the gut ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about the gut and the immune system. So as we eat types of food that might not be appropriate for us in terms of sensitiveness, uh, why we are sensitive to this food. For example, dairy, gluten, we see on nuts, those are things that we see a lot. Is because when we eat those foods, some of us will react to that food in the sense that uh, the food is seen as a bacterial invasion, not as food. So because your immune system doesn't see gluten as gluten, but for example, but sees it as like you being invaded, you will latch a huge immune response to protect you. But when you have all the inflammatory markers going in to kill the invasion, it's just food. So, and you eat that every day because very often people don't have any symptoms. So that creates a chronic inflammatory process, and and that only tends to spread the inflammation from the gut to everywhere in the body. So since we talk about inflammation, what really is inflammation, and what inflammation does to our body? So we believe that chronic inflammation is behind all the major chronic disease that we have, like cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, asthma, allergies, and by looking at this slide, you can see how many things we believe are caused or are perpetuated by inflammation. Inflammation as a process is a vital function of your innate immune system that is triggered immediately after you are being invaded by a pathogen or right after you have trauma, like I mentioned before. But if this process goes uncontrolled and continues on, even if we don't have a pathogen, then we have a problem. It's not by mistake that inflammation made the cover of Time magazine as the secret killer. So how inflammation works, just like I explained before, you can have trauma or you can have an invasion of bacteria, chemicals, or viruses. The sentinel cells in your immune system, which is just like the neighborhood cop patrolling the area, will see that damage and will radio the immune system, which is the station, using what I just called this reaction called NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B will prompt the cells through cytokines to tell the immune system that we have a problem there and that problem needs to be addressed. So the immune system will send the first responders, which are the neutrophils. The neutrophils will surround the damage and will engulf it. And when they do that, they signal back to the immune system and ask for help to have the professional cleaners to come in and clean that whole toxic mess out. So the immune system sends monocytes, which is specialized cells to do that. They take this whole thing into the drainage, which is the lymphatic vessel. If there's no more problem, inflammation is resolved. But if the pathogen continues to persist, or if the response to the pathogens through the cytokines continue to ask for help, then we create a chronic inflammatory environment. And that's exactly what we don't want. So inflammation, like I just said, if the threat remains and the immune response is constantly triggered, or an individual has a condition that's causing the immune system to react, like if there is a threat, the inflammatory response can continue and damage the body instead of healing it. So there will be the formation of antibodies. These antibodies formed by B lymphocytes, for example, um, and they stay in your body. And so if you continue to have this loop of the inflammation process being fed, so we have a never-ending process that can actually cause all the diseases that I listed on a few slides before, like cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease, gut problems, asthma, allergies, Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. So how to prevent chronic inflammation? Well, I really like diet. I think diet is great, but there is also exercise. There is like the stress reduction, because stress will cause inflammation. And in different lectures, I will show how is the connection between stress and inflammation. Also important is sleep. We have to sleep enough. And lastly, I like to highlight the importance of using antioxidants as the primary medicine for inflammation. So let's start first talking about diet. There's so many studies showing that a diet full of antioxidants and minerals and vitamins is anti-inflammatory, as opposed to a diet that is completely inflammatory. So we have, in this slide, we see 17 types of inflammatory foods. Basically, sugar is highly inflammatory. If we want to study inflammation, and we want to do that using an animal model, and the animals are healthy, the first thing we do to induce inflammation is to feed the animals with a high fructose diet that immediately causes inflammation. So bear that in mind, that sugar is highly inflammatory. And then we have all the processed foods that contain dyes, preservatives, things that we can pronounce, MSG, and you name it. You look at the labels, especially on the back label, and you see all the things that are in the food that are not natural. So it's very important that we make good options in terms of diet, and that we look into food items that are anti-inflammatory, just like I mentioned before. For example, all antioxidants in fruits and vegetables. We like the approach of the rainbow diet, getting all the colors of the produce and fruits, and you eat those things throughout the day. I'd like to talk, for example, I just this is like it's just to show that there is stuff in our foods that we buy in the markets that cause cancer. Acrylamide is one of them. It's used all over food industry, and what it does is it basically it browns some sorts of food so they look better, they look good, in our eyes. That in the food industry is called the Maillard reaction, and some cooks know that because but they have natural ways to do that. But when you mass produce something, you gotta minimize the cost, and by using this particular chemical, acrylamide, you can achieve that. So acrylamide is related to a family of chemicals known as advanced glycation and products. And the acronym of that is AGES. And they do cause inflammation, and they will make you, because of inflammation, you will age faster. So that's one bad thing about it. So acrylamides, they bind into protein in food to create AGEs. And AGEs, or advanced glycation end products, are highly causative of cancer and inflammation. So, like I said before, we have to try to eat all colors, natural foods. We have to focus on the food, on the produce and fruits that are in season, um, uh, hopefully locally, organic, and pure. That's the way it should be. There is a connection between diet and exercise. If you eat well and if you exercise, if you move, when I say move, if you walk enough, if you keep yourself moving all the time, being active, so there's a benefit in eating well and exercising. You don't need to exercise like a pro, because that will cause inflammation. But you can exercise to keep your body, fit. Your cardiorespiratory organs working well, your muscles being able to perform basic activity, like go for a run or walk fast or lift mild weights. That's what we're looking for. There are plenty evidence, scientific evidence, telling us that exercise, when done right, can be anti-inflammatory. It can contribute to actually enhancing the immune system. So what about stress? The stress is something that we are all subject to. It comes from relationships. It comes from politics. It comes from traffic. It comes from everywhere, workplace. So we all have stress. Even if we live in an isolated island all by ourselves, we're going to have stress, because it's stress if we're going to make it through the night, if like a wild animal will come to kill us, or if you have enough food, or the weather, whatever that is. So we all have stress. It's impossible to just make it disappear. But we know that stress, especially when it goes uncontrolled, also influences food choices. Stress can also enhance maladaptive metabolic responses to unhealthy meals. Like if you constrict and you eat, you might not absorb that food. And diet, we also know that can impact mood, and well as being pro-inflammatory when with the response, when is a response to stress surge. Stress is primarily a physical response. When stressed, the body thinks it's under attack. So your nervous system will react to that attack. Your central nervous system will tell your hypothalamus to send a message to the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland sends releasing hormones all the way to the adrenal glands and tell the adrenal glands to release cortisol. But your autonomic nervous system, through the sympathetic, will send signals to several tissues in the body to release NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B, if you might remember, as I mentioned a few slides before, are the main biochemical package that the sentinels use to produce cytokines. Cytokines will prompt the inflammatory process. So see, stress will cause inflammation and as a reaction from your central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. In other lectures, I will actually draw this schematic so you can better understand uh, how the central nervous system works as the brakes and the autonomic nervous system works as the gas pedal in reacting to stress. In this slide, I just I put that out because chronic stress is a problem, and this study actually shows that there are common pathways for stress-related diseases and chronic inflammation. Just like I explained before, if in the intertwine between the central nervous system stimulating the adrenal gland to release cortisol, and the autonomic nervous system stimulating the sympathetic to relieve NF-kappa B, you might lose the brakes and you keep just the gas pedal. So inflammation goes rampant. So let's talk a little bit about sleep. Everybody agrees that sleep is important, but most of us don't do it, or we keep getting ourselves busy in a computer or TV, whatever that is, reading, because we never have time. But we all have 24 hours a day. That's a gift to all of us. And we have the choice to use this hour wisely. So lack of sleep contributes to inflammation, period. There are plenty of research studies showing that reducing sleep, but just 2 hours or 3 per night can have dramatic health consequences such as obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and lack of immunity. So sleep is a time necessary when we reset everything, including the immune system. So in this slide, I just list a whole bunch of studies showing that there is a link between lack of sleep, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, inflammation, lack of immunity, and so on and so forth. So if you have the sleep disturbance, which is a lot of us have, we have to fix that, because you have to be able to sleep a certain number of hours in order to be healthy. So lastly, let's talk a little bit about antioxidants. What are antioxidants? So to talk about antioxidants, let's first talk about what are free radicals. We all know that free radicals are bad stuff, but actually very few of us know how to define free radicals. So a free radical is any molecule that is missing one electron. So what it does, especially in the body, is it goes throughout the body and it steals the electron that's missing from other molecules that are healthy. So when it does that, it actually create like a zombie army of free radicals in the body. That amount of free radicals, what they do is actually they create a high level of oxidative stress. That oxidative stress in the tissue is seen as damage. So that will make the sentinel cells to rely on NF-kappa B to make cytokines and to ask the immune system to send neutrophils. So see the connection from when we start talking about immune system and how inflammation happens, and to now free radicals. So free radicals are a big problem, and we have to fight it. We produce free radicals by just breathing, eating, drinking, living. But if there are free radicals, the free radical load is too big because of inflammation, chronic inflammation, and other factors. We need to take care of that. And the answer for treating anti-free radicals is antioxidants. And why is that? Because antioxidants happen to be a molecule that has an extra electron. So you have here the free radicals that are missing one electron and need to get stable. But you have the antioxidants that have that extra electron. And they donate that electron with no loss of energy. So all is good. If we have enough antioxidants, we can actually neutralize all the free radicals. Um, and that's basically what we try to do in treating inflammation that's chronic. So antioxidants are our friends, and free radicals are really our enemy. Um, so antioxidants will also help us to prevent the formation of free radicals. And antioxidants also help to repair what I just mentioned about oxidative stress damage. And will also eliminate damaged molecules, that are the free radicals, and will prevent mutations in the cells. That's how we believe that most cancers start, when the inflammatory process induces changes in the DNA, and that cell with the damaged DNA starts to multiply and form a cell that's not really the cells of that tissue. They are foreign cells to the tissue, and when they grow, they become a tumor, and then your immune system might not be able to fight it. And then that tumor may be able to gain the ability to migrate to other tissues, then you have metastases, and then the whole immune situation gets very complicated. So by treating inflammation with antioxidants, we actually are preventing cancer. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk just now. Some studies have shown that taking antioxidants such as vitamin A, C, E, folic acid, beta carotene might reduce the risk of certain diseases that are related to oxidative stress, including cancer. Antioxidant supplements they have shown to decrease the effectiveness of radiation centered forms of chemotherapy that use oxidative stress to kill cancer. But because antioxidant supplements work by combating free radicals, taking supplements as a cancer patient might lessen the chemo. So that's a discussion that we're having recently, that if you have cancer, you should not take antioxidants. But we think that if you have cancer, and that cancer was generated by free radicals, taking antioxidants is actually the right thing to do. But you can also take antioxidants by eating good organic food, because they will help to provide nutrients to support a healthy immune system. There is a connection also between cancer and genetics. About 10 to 15% of cancers are considered to be familial or inherited, but the 75 to the 85 to 90% are actually a genetic problem. And when we say genetic problem, is that what I just described a few slides ago, that the inflammatory process damages the DNA in the cell, and that cell starts to multiply with the damaged genetic code, and it becomes a tumor. So cancer is a genetic disease in that sense. Cancer is actually the most common genetic disease. The transition from a normal cell to a malignant cancer is driven by those changes that I mentioned in the DNA that we call mutation. And those mutations are very often caused by inflammation. Of course, the environment also plays a role in inducing those mutations, because unfortunately there are so many chemicals that are in our environment, like heavy metals, like hormones, like xenoestrogens, that we are exposed to these chemicals. These chemicals cause inflammation, and inflammation causes the cancer. Cancer is actually a group of more than 100 different diseases. It's not just one disease. And it can develop almost anywhere in the body. So we recently have the discussion, for example, in terms of environmental toxins, Roundup, which is glyphosates, but we also have atrazine, dieldrine, diazinon, arsenic, mercury, plastics, aflatoxins, benzenes, heavy metals, as I mentioned, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And what these things do is they cause inflammation in the body, and very often that inflammation will cause a mutation in particular cells, and we might develop a cancer tumor. So again, estrogens, for example, it's a big problem, and they are in our basically our produce through fertilization and sprays. We have the plastic problem. Pollution is rampant. We need to find ways to get better in that area without stopping economic development. We don't want that. When we say that we need to address pollution, we need to address pollution as a community and try to find better ways to use better materials and to take care of the environment in a better way. So exposure to a wide variety of natural and man-made substances in the environment actually accounts for at least 2/3 of all cases of cancer in this country. So we need to find ways to continue to grow economically, and to use economic progress to benefit our communities, but also we have to find ways to minimize the toxic load that development might cause. But also we have a problem that we can do whatever we do here in this country, but other countries are also polluting and putting out a lot of chemicals that are banned here in America. So this is also a problem that we have to address and involve the global community in terms of reducing the toxic load in the environment. So I want to close just by saying that we have our immune system that is perfectly created by God, that help us to defend ourselves from all kinds of pathogens and threats. But we also have a way to strengthening this immune system through diet, through exercise, through good food and water and sleep, and by reducing stress, and also when necessary, taking antioxidant supplementation. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to see you soon. Thank you. But I want to say first that all healing comes from Jesus.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what supplements or what doctor you go to, it's from Him. But I love to give this talk because a lot of people ask me what I do, and I'll basically explain what I take and why I take it. But before doing that, I want to make a few drawings because it will be important as we talk about supplements. So I want to just make a little drawing here in what inflammation is and how this is a blood vessel. This is tissue, and this is a lymphatic vessel. So in any tissue in the body, we have cells, and cells that do different things. There are different cells, but we have a particular group of cells in any tissue. Let's say these cells here, they are called sentinel cells. And what they do is they scan the whole tissue all the time, looking for damage. And damage can be trauma, and it can be bacteria, or it can be a virus, or it can be chemicals. And let's say that this particular tissue has some damage. So, as the sentinel cells see damage, the first thing that they do is they have a special cell phone that they call the immune system for help. That will make sense. This cell phone has a name, and do you have any reason? I'll read you one, Doc. This is N. Sorry about my handwriting. F. Kappa B. So this is the sentinel cell phone. And what they do is they text the immune system. And when they text the immune system, they use a special code called cytokine. And when they do that, the immune system that is in the blood acknowledges this code and sends help. This means help. So, because of this, the immune system will send cells to help deal with the damage. So these cells from the immune system surround the damage and eat it. You probably recognize these cells from blood tests. Those are neutrophils. We see that in this blood test on CDC. So the neutrophils, they engulf the damage, and once they do that, they also have a special cell phone, but it doesn't matter here. So they text back to the system and they say, all is well, we need to clean this mess. So the immune system then sends other cells, they're bigger, and they are actually like professional cleaners, and we call the cells monocytes. So the monocytes get its own mass here and take it to the drainage. Solve the problem, yeah? So then there will be signals telling the immune system, yes, this is solved. I go back here later. This is the signal. But there's a little problem. One, the damage continues, but the trauma continues. And the other problem is this omax, even if it's resolved, will create things called free radicals. We're going to talk about free radicals in a minute. And as free radicals and as the load of free radicals get increased, this generates one thing called stress. And this stress is called oxidative stress. And what oxidative stress does is prompt the sentinel cells to use the cell phone. So again, the whole thing is going to be initiated, and what we have is chronic inflammation. Inflammation that doesn't get resolved. So, let's do this here. So what is a free radical? Anyone? Okay, we know it's bad. Yeah, it's a bad thing. So a free radical, it's a molecule, it's not a cell. So molecules are like things like this that have a nucleus and has electrons orbiting that nucleus, right? It's high school chemistry. But in the case of the free radicals, they're missing one electron. They don't have this two here. So they are unstable. So they go throughout our bodies trying to find the missing electron. And when they bounce to any other molecule that is complete, they steal it. They steal the electron. So that creates an army of free radicals that leads to oxidative stress, and that's the cause of inflammation. And inflammation, if it goes uncontrolled, causes cancer, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, asthma, gut problems, you name it, all chronic diseases. This is a single source, this inflammation. However, we do have another molecule that is a little different than the free radicals because it not only has all the electrons, but it has an extra. So every time this molecule comes across a free radical, it sort of neutralizes it because it gives the extra electron to the free radical with no loss of energy or anything like that, just donates. So, anyone guess the name of this molecule?
Bad news.
No, this is a good guy.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So these are antioxidants. So, if we have enough antioxidants, we can completely neutralize the free radicals. If we neutralize the free radicals, we won't have excess oxidative stress. If we don't have excess oxidative stress, we won't have chronic inflammation. Simple, right? So why this is not done? I speak with like a high degree of confidence that, and you may agree with me, that if everybody, all my colleagues in town were doing this, Queen's Hospital will be empty right now. No one there. Well, they are, and a few folks, but not the way it is. They don't have room. It's full of people. Go to the ICU, it's packed.
Oh, yeah.
All chronic inflammation. Not all, but a great part of chronic inflammation. So the last drawing I'm going to do here, I want to also show how stress, and stress can be anything. It can be physical stress, it can be relationships, politics, whatever, traffic. How besides this, how stress impacts the nervous system. So we have the central nervous system. So I'm going to draw the brain here. Bear with me. This is the brain. And as we face stress, the central nervous system acts in a way that we have the hypothalamus here. The hypothalamus sends a signal to a gland that we have here in the brain called hypophysis. Hypophysis signals a little gland that we have on top of our kidneys called adrenal gland. The adrenal gland makes cortisol. We say cortisol is a stress hormone. But the other side of this is the autonomic nervous system. And as we have stress, the autonomic nervous system, through the sympathetic, signals the tissue to make NF kappa B. See the connection? So what NF kappa B does? Inflammation. So inflammation is a natural response to stress. But this system here is actually balanced. If this side of the system is the gas pedal, this is the brake. But we have a little problem here. And the problem is that the gas never wears out. But we may lose the brakes. And we lose the brakes simply because the adrenal gland gets tired of making cortisol, so it stops making it. Or the tissue that is inflamed gets resistant to cortisol because stress is chronic. So we know that cortisol is a steroid hormone. So what steroids do? They block inflammation. That's why this is a brake. But if we lose the brakes, then we have inflammation that, because of stress, grows everywhere, including to the brain. And as we age, there's a new term that some Japanese researchers use, which is called inflammation. It's the inflammation that we acquire through, all the damage that our tissues face, plus the process of aging. So that being said, so let's talk about how we can use supplements.
That was a great drawing, Doc. Thank you. That's a bonus drawing right there. We're recording all this too, so we're going to send you a link so you'll be able to watch this. Yeah, brilliant.
So before I talk about supplements, I want to tell you that I'm all for food. I think food is creation and is what we need. But as we go through the presentation, I will also tell my concerns about food and the food that we have available today. I have this slide, and I presented that before. What is killing us? This is a list of chronic diseases that kill all of us in this country. See, number one is heart disease. Then second is cancer. Almost all of them are caused by inflammation. Almost all of them. We have heart disease, cancer, we have chronic lower respiratory diseases, we have stroke, we have Alzheimer's, we have diabetes, we have pneumonia, we have kidney disease. We can even infer that accidents, the third one, and the last one, suicide, also has an inflammatory cause. Because as you take drugs, for example, for depression and anxiety, you might create an inflammatory environment in your body. And the same with injuries, you might get into an accident because the night before you took Ambien. We don't trust FDA, we don't trust governments or anything like that. We all think that it's all like part of a big scheme of Babylon. But FDA issued a warning about especially ladies taking Ambien and driving next day. So they did that because of lawsuits, not because they care about you. So if we look at this, we find inflammation everywhere. But I think I mentioned not here, but before to some of you, this year we're going to spend $4 trillion in healthcare. in disease care, sorry, $4 trillion. Half of this money goes to hospitals and doctors. So what is the incentive of stopping this? This is bad for business if we stop this. I'm bad for business. I can be a threat to their paradigm, business paradigm. But we have to speak the truth. So inflammation causes all this. They know that. Because I'm telling you, and I know they know too. Yeah. One of my goals in practice is actually that you know what I know. Because if you know what I know, you are empowered. And you can take a better care of yourself and others. This doesn't come from my head. This is all published studies, scientific research that I think God allows. He created information. He created the ways of our immune system to fight inflammation. So we have a problem, and inflammation causes all this in our bodies. And some are actually, there's a feedback. Inflammation causes obesity, but obesity causes inflammation. Inflammation causes diabetes, but diabetes causes inflammation. And so on for like infection, injury, and things like that. This is a different way to show this. I'm basically showing all these things that are caused by inflammation or the non-resolution of an inflammatory process.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of things, yeah. So let's talk about food. We have a few problems with food. The question of the climate change became politically charged. But we have to admit that the levels of CO2, for example, are higher than it was like 50 years ago. I have no agenda to stop economic progress, but we have to acknowledge that we have to do better in terms of taking care of the environment. So there is a higher level of O2. That higher level of O2 is impacting agriculture all over the world. We also have agricultural techniques that tend to expedite the production of produce, so it gets from farm to table in a lesser time. That creates less denser products for us to eat and consume. So that's a problem too. The other thing that happened is because the soil has been used up over and over and intensively because of economic activity as well, we lack nitrogen. Nitrogen is essential for any crop. So what we do? We fertilize. So we inject nitrogen in the soil. But because this is artificial and man-made, we invariably need more water, and invariably we are diluting out the nutrients of the crops that we are planting. So this is research that show that, for example, the levels of vitamins are much less in our food. This actually was a landmark research. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't write that, but I think it was done by the University of Texas at Austin. So, like, we have reliable declines in the amount of protein, calcium, phosphorus, minerals in terms of in food, and especially in the past 15 years. There are verified declines in essential minerals like zinc, magnesium. Magnesium is essential for blood vessel health, for brain health. There's, like I said, there is a big research done in the UK showing that we have a huge decline in the past 50 years. This is all. I tried to put everything here, but it's impossible to read. But this is basically just a small portion of the literature to substantiate this. So we talk about that there is the dilution effect in the way that they raise the crops, but also there is the GMO problem. The GMO problem is real, and the studies that we have, they don't show positive results with modified, genetically modified food. So these are problems with food that we have to, it's everywhere. This is just to show that this is like different varieties of rice that are cultivated in Southeast Asia and by their names, yeah? And to show that because we have elevated CO2, we have a decline of almost 20% in protein in rice, just because of the elevation of CO2. So that's not good.
No.
So what is out there? You go to Costco.
I would like to just answer that with one. Billions of dollars of profit, and we don't know what it is. I mean, not the good ones, but everywhere. Vitamins, everywhere. We don't know what to take. Thank you.
Yeah, so yes, you go to Costco, you go any pharmacy, any supermarket, and you see like shelves and shelves of stuff that how am I going to choose something if I need anything? Look at that. It's like candy.
Yeah.
One thing we have to pay attention is fraud. The supplement industry became highly fraudulent, highly dishonest. They will do anything to sell you that particular bottle. Actually, on the front part, because supplements are regulated as food, so anything in the front label, they can lie. They can say that you're gonna grow taller, be more beautiful, and live forever. It's legal. In the back label, they have to be more truthful. But who's gonna just verify that? So there are a lot of frauds. And, this actually is from our friend FDA. They're giving us advice on how to not fall for supplements that say, for example, quick and effective, cure all, can treat or cure all diseases, totally safe. It's beautiful. And also, really try to avoid stuff that is based on personal testimonies, like artists or actors or important people saying that they take some stuff. We look for the evidence.
Yeah.
That's what I want to show here is the hard scientific evidence for taking some of the stuff that we do. Like I said, fraud and dishonesty not too long ago. I think this was a whistleblower case that some in one company contacted the New York State Attorney General's office, and they investigated. So we pulled out from GNC, Target, Walgreens, and Walmart. They took stuff from there to the lab, and for example, I'm not sure if this is the right example, but in a particular supplement that said gluten-free and all good, you're gonna be a powerful man, something like that. There's wheat flour in it. That's it. Nothing else. And in the bottle said gluten-free. So if you're gluten sensitive, or if you have a serious disease like celiac, that you can even look at gluten, that you feel sick, and you take this stuff, that might take you to the hospital. And we find cases and cases and cases So supplements and herbals and natural stuff that, you know, take people to the ER and causing even fun. That's a fact.
Wow.
So we need to pay attention to these things. So this is serious. Yeah? These are the vitamins. How many cereals do we have? 4 or 5? Yeah, corn, wheat, rice, right? But just 4 or 5 types, right?
Yeah.
But like hundreds of brands and all kinds of things, you know, to attract your eyes, to, you know, it's all marketing.
Yeah.
First of all, this stuff here is all GMO, guaranteed, 100% GMO, guaranteed high fructose corn syrup, so it's full of Roundup, atrazine, all kind of poisons, dangerous to children. But then, I just put this to make an analogy to the supplement aisle. It's the same. How many vitamins do we have? How many supplements do we have, different ones? Not many, you can count. But they make in a way that, you know, see this here, I'm not sure if you can read it, but tested to be trusted. See how they play the words? All this company, they hire English majors to put this stuff together. So when we read it, it's easy to read and make sense.
Yeah.
And you say, well, this is the one I'm gonna get. I'm not gonna get this one here because this is trusted, because it's tested. Tested by who? Who is gonna trust this stuff?
You're telling a doc.
So this is bad stuff. I'd rather have you not taking anything than going to Costco, Safeway, whatever you go shopping and buy stuff because you think it's good. So we have a problem. We have inflammation in the center of our lives, causing all sorts of diseases. But we have the food that may be tainted, GMO, so this is not really a banana. And then we have the, you know, we want to have some supplements to maybe, you know, like strengthen our diet and make us better, healthier. But we also have the fraud. These people here were sued over and over and over. And up to this day, I have patients making me bottles like that's tragic. They'll make your memory like, you know, never before. You have the counterfeit. Yeah, go ahead. Go buy your stuff from Amazon. Where's it coming from? There's no oversight. I have nothing against the Chinese. But what if all this stuff is made in a foreign country? With, if we can regulate it here, can we regulate it there? We don't know where it comes from. Anyone can fake a label of like a legit product and sell on Amazon. It's a big problem. Then we have stuff like this. This is a complete fraud sold by Costco. This is a fish oil coming in a clear bottle. Oils get broken by light. Why are you doing this? So you see the pills? You buy rancid oil. Spoiled. And then people say, well, fish oil doesn't work. Actually, I feel bad. Well, no kidding, you're taking rancid oil. And then we have Dr. Google, right here. You give you good advice. Just type it in, and you get all that stuff coming out that anyone can write. So what we're looking now here, we're going after the hard evidence. The evidence that what we have, published work, you might say, well, it can be fraudulent too. Yes, you know, but usually people who publish fraudulent stuff go to jail. So, you know, like it was the case a few years ago. I'm not sure if you remember the case, many years ago. That two scientists from Harvard, they published a paper saying that sugar was completely safe. Then years later, we came to know that they got big checks from the American Association of Sugar Producers to write that piece.
They
They were sent to jail.
Good for them.
Because see, if you are a scientist and you want to create an environment to study inflammation, and you have an animal model, the first thing that you do is you feed the animals with high fructose diet. You create inflammation like this. So then we can study. That's why we know all this stuff. Because we gave sugar to nice mice. So, because we're looking after the evidence, this here is the scientific way to look into evidence. We have ideas, we have opinions, we have editorials. Those are very weak evidence because it's the opinion of someone about something or about a theory. Then we have case reports that say that, because I'm in clinical medicine, I see over and over that if I give the substance X, I have good results with disease Y. So I want all my colleagues to know that, so I publish a case report or case studies showing that. But that means that you work for them as well? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe the population is C special. Maybe there's a placebo effect. Like patients like me so much that they get well. So there are many factors that, that's why this is not like a strong evidence. But then you go cross-section study. That gets more specific. We get a population, we kind of cross-section a part of the population, let's say all female, 21 to 30 years old, that are left-handed. So it's a very specific portion of the population, then you study that. So then the evidence gets more stronger, right? Then you go to case control studies. Case control studies is not like a clinical trial because you don't have the aspect of the clinical, but you have the aspect of having a placebo and an intervention. So we control the X and Y. So we know that there is a high confidence interval that what we find here is close to reality and truth. Then we have cohort studies when we have multi-center places studying the same thing with different populations, and we come to one conclusion. And then we have clinical trials, which is the gold standard in drugs. Because see, drugs are man-made. It's a synthetic substance that is completely alien in the body. So we have a group that we give placebo, and we have the group that we give the substance. Because the substance, there's no equal in the body, we know that the effect of the substance will produce X and Y and Z results. But that being said, if you look at a number of drugs approved by FDA, they will tell you unknown mechanism of action. They don't know how it works, and it gets approved. And finally, we have the pinnacle of evidence, which is a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is when I get a whole bunch of, let's say, case studies, cohorts, everything that was published. And let's say the use of fish oil to counteract inflammation. So I look at like all the papers published ever on that subject, and I compare them all, and I see what is the percentage of them agreeing with one result. So this is the hardest evidence ever. And that's what we always shoot for. But it's not possible to always find meta-analysis because these studies depend on MULA. So NIH sometimes is not interested in financing this stuff, and the pharmaceutical industry, they hate this, the natural
Truth.
things.
They hate the truth.
Yeah. So, I want to talk about multivitamins, antioxidants, vitamin D, fish oil, turmeric, and CoQ10. And I want to say, I like to say what I see in each one of them, and how I select them. So let's start with the multivitamin antioxidants. So I look in the comprehensive package that will deliver what they say they have in the label, and it has all the micronutrients that we need. But I also look in how we're going to absorb these things. Because if I take an expensive multivitamin that looks really good, reputable company, but I'm not absorbing it, so I'm just creating an expensive shishi and poop. So it won't help us. And I don't want that. So this is what I basically look in a multivitamin and an antioxidant pack. I want to address nutrient deficiencies because we all have it. No one is special. We eat the same food. Even if we eat organic, local grown, there is deficiencies that we have. And also, we have genetic variations among us that will not allow us to absorb certain things. My wife is like brunette like you, and she had a gut problem for a long time that I struggled to treat because it seemed to have no end. And because she's brunette like you, I never thought about vitamin D. So, and I was supplementing vitamin D to her. So when we got the vitamin D serum, she was on the dead end low of vitamin D. And she's a person who loves the sun, and the sun makes vitamin D, which is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And then after learning that, I moved to order a genetic testing, and the genetic testing showed that she does have a mutation in the vitamin D receptor in her gut that prevents her from absorbing vitamin D just like human. So we had to increase the dosage, and once we did that, then we solved the problem. But so there's the genetic variation. So I looked for to address nutrient deficiencies. As you saw, this is what killing us, our disease. So I want to address cardiovascular issues in the same package. I want a bone nutrition, especially for ladies after menopause, especially because of hormone imbalances. We had to fix that too, but I look into bone health. Immune function, because if you don't have a good immune system, this here won't work well. And we need our immune system to be strong enough to fight inflammation. So I'll look also in a good support for blood sugar metabolism with certain minerals that we find. And also I want to protect us against the symptoms of inflammation that we all face. You stop getting older if you die. But if you're still living, you're getting older.
Yeah.
All of us. So we want to address that, that process. And finally, I want to raise the antioxidant defense because that's obvious. We need to kill this stuff here. This is evil.
Yep.
The free radical.
You're on fire, Doc. We're loving this.
So I try to address nutritional deficiencies, and this is basically to illustrate that. This is what the government tells us to do. The RDA. This is like a critical level. This is the deficiency. I see a lot of people here on the green. I see some people here in between the critical level and the RDA. I rarely see people with optimal. Big Pharma doesn't want us here. They want us sick because you have to consume the drugs. You have to go and undergo procedure. That's how the money is made. The $4 trillion. It's going to be $6 trillion in 2022.
Not our money.
So this is basically to show what I see in cardiovascular benefits in an antioxidant package. I want to address blood pressure because this is a problem, and it's a problem not only for those who don't have hypertension, but all of us who live, on the edge with so much stress in our lives. Because I'm not sure if you know this, but this is Babylon. We're still in exile, and that's why we have a lot of stress too.
Yes.
So we have to address this with calcium, magnesium, and it doesn't show here, but there is also another mineral called boron that helps the calcium metabolism and blood pressure. We want to address inflammation with antioxidants and flavonoids. Flavonoids are polyphenols that we find in many plants. We have to address homocysteine because homocysteine is a byproduct of inflammation that causes free radicals, specifically in the heart, and kills heart cells. And if you have your heart cells killed, then you have an infarct, you have a heart attack. And I want to address circulation in general. Is the blood flowing well? And we achieve that with particular flavonoids in the package. So this is bone health. This is to show like healthy bone, like bone that's thinning, and like fragile bone that might be, pliable, breakable. People taking the prescription drugs for osteoporosis usually get this bone. And the reason why they get this type of bone is because the medication that is designed to treat osteoporosis actually prevents your bone from making new bone. So you end up with an old skeleton, and an old skeleton is very pliable. So you hear reports of usually ladies, waiting for a bus, and the bus stopping. Here goes the fever. It's very common, and that's medication injury. And now they have a new one that they inject twice a year, called Prolia. Everybody's on that now. So we need to address bone health with calcium, like I said, magnesium. I don't know why boron is not there, but we need boron. We need vitamin D, and we need vitamin K. Vitamin K, a lot of people are scared of vitamin K because of clotting, but we use a portion of vitamin K that what it does is it doesn't clot your blood, but it removes the calcium from the vessels and take that calcium and make it stay in the bone. It's called vitamin K2, or a fraction of that called MK7. So we use MK2 and MK7, which is our fractions of vitamin K2. No clotting. So we want to have a normal immune function. Most adults don't need any vaccine because we have an immune system that was intelligently designed to fend off attacks.
Yeah.
But that immune system highly relies on food. But we have a problem, like I explained. We have a food problem. So that's why the case of a supplement that enhances the immune function. And of course, we need the zinc and the vitamin B6. And you saw in prior slides that vitamin B6 is also something that's been depleted from the food. And we need the carotenoids. Not only the beta carotene and selenium is a mineral, but there are over 600 types of carotenoids. The name comes from carrot, but they come from everywhere. It's just that they carry the name. So we look for blood sugar and insulin. We have to optimize the work of insulin. Our bodies is under attack because we eat too much sugar. Sugar is everywhere. In the food industry, the cheapest component is bad water.
What?
Bad water. Water that doesn't have any quality. The second cheapest component in any food is sugar. You see everywhere, all the labels. Look at the labels and you see. So we are having much sugar than we need. So we need to optimize that not only by being mindful of the products that we're eating, but also giving our body a little bit of chromium that can be absorbed. Doesn't matter if you go Costco, you get the beautiful box of chromium picolinate. You know, it might have nothing in it. Because chromium helps to optimize insulin. Insulin is just like a bus going through the blood. We have sugar circulating in the blood, and that signals to the pancreas we need insulin because we have too much circulating sugar. So your pancreas sends the insulin bus. The insulin bus picks up all the sugar it finds in the blood, and it drives it inside the cell where it can be used as energy. But then, when they have enough, the cells have enough sugar inside, they send another signal through the bloodstream to the pancreas and say, we have enough, stop this bus. So then the pancreas produces glucagon. Glucagon is also a bus, but instead of taking sugar to the blood cells, it takes to the liver to be stored as glycogen. So when we need it, we have to, we can transform that glycogen into usable energy inside the cell. So that's basically what I look in terms of sugar and insulin in a multivitamin formula. So this is a free radical, like I explained before. You know, this is much nicer. It's you know, I would say that the free radical is happy because he's evil, and he's doing evil, and he's happy about that evil. You know, he doesn't repent. He wants to cause damage. So he lacks one electron, and then we donate that electron, you know, with a molecule that's an antioxidant. Once we do that, you know, then the free radical is now stable and it doesn't cause any more damage. That's the idea. Because what I do is clinical practice. I like to measure everything, and for those who know me, know that's exactly what I do. And I use different methodologies. For measuring antioxidants, I use a scanner that scans the skin and gives us back like a measurement of how much antioxidants you have in your body. So this is just this is over I think 50,000 cases analyzing, taking an antioxidant package. See, this one here goes up, goes above. I think this number is 70,000. And this is an example of not taking anything, but just eating fruits and vegetables. Not necessarily organic, a mixed bag. Can be. The number we look here is 65. So we believe that through research, 65 is enough antioxidants to completely neutralize the free radicals. So I look for that measurement to all my patients. This is an example of how we scan it. It's a device like this. Let's see if I can play this. The visual audio. It's just to show that you're scanning the skin carotenoid, and we're coming up with that. I don't read for you because you'll be waiting. I want the measurements to be here on this end of the scale. And in this case here, I think it's a 37,000. So we have another half to go. I remember, I know this patient, and when he started, she was 16,000. Below 20,000 is what I see in most cancer patients. About 10,000 range, those undergoing chemo, radiation. Because that's how chemo and radiation works, by causing free radicals. And they have the gut to put in their websites saying that if you're taking chemo and undergoing radiation, do not take antioxidants. So, if you take chemo and radiation, eat every day at McDonald's. That's the basic message. Because antioxidants is gonna, make the treatment ineffective. Yes, because we are fighting free radicals. What caused cancer in the first place? And of course, I look into vitamin D. There's so much, not in the same package. Yeah? I tend to supplement vitamin D separately, although there is some in a multivitamin, but I like to give separately because there's so much rich information, scientific on vitamin D, like for vascular disease, chronic inflammation, viral infections, low levels are associated with heart attack. You have, when you have low vitamin D, look at this thing, IL-6, which is a cytokine. What is a cytokine? It's an inflammatory marker. So vitamin D is associated, low vitamin D is associated with a higher cytokine count. That can might as well lead to sepsis. We can have two types of sepsis. We can have sepsis as like inflammation in the blood, but we can have sepsis because we have a overexpression of cytokines, too much, and you die. There's very little we can do, even in a hospital setting. So see, there's over 69,000 scientific papers just on vitamin D. The NIH, the National Institutes of Health, has given almost 20,000 grants to study vitamin D. So this is not, like hocus pocus. Fish oil. Fish oil, Big Pharma hates fish oil. And some doctors do too. Because, and I go back here, fish oil does two things that are key to inflammation. One, see this thing here? E and D series resolvents. This is what helps the monocytes to signal the immune system, telling it that inflammation is resolved. That's why the name is resolvents. I didn't make it up. It's resolvents. So the E stands for EPA and the D for DHA. These are the two main fatty acids in fish oil. These are omega-3 fatty acids that have the main effect in the body. Both EPA and DHA block NF-kappa B. That's not me saying this. This is over 48,000 published scientific studies saying this. So, it does two things. It helps to resolve inflammation and it blocks NF-kappa B. There is another important effect on D-series resolvings and brain inflammation. That's why some of these 48,000 papers talk about Alzheimer's dementia and the use of fish oil to treat it. So this is undesirable. They don't like that. And then, goes over and over here, 14% reduction in the risk of dying from any cause if you supplement with fish oil. It reduces inflammation. It's just an awesome supplement. We don't make it in the body. We have to eat it. So how much fish we're gonna eat, and how much mercury we're gonna get with it. So we need to use pure, not contaminated fish oil. Don't go Costco and buy that clear bottle because it's already tainted. Even if there's fish oil, there was fish oil there, the light killed it. That's why you don't buy olive oil in clear bottle or any oil, even car oil. The light will destroy it because the very nature of how oils chemically are structured. So we have curcumin. Why curcumin is here? Because of many things, but the main thing of curcumin is this. It's a natural blocker of NF-kappa B. That's it. If we have to separate one single thing that turmeric does, is to block NF-kappa B and blocks inflammation. 28,000 studies on that. If you watch TV, you probably saw commercials of monoclonal antibodies. A famous one is Humira for rheumatoid arthritis, right? Humira was designed to block this. That's the main mechanism of action. Although if you read the whole thing, they don't really know how it works. Seriously, it's written. But if you take Humira, the little voice over the beautiful pictures of people very happy, yeah, they're gonna say, you have the risk of having tuberculosis, respiratory infections, pneumonia, and death. Because the way they block the NF-kappa B, NF-kappa B is basically, you have a cell. This is a cell, not a molecule. And you have in the cell, you have the nucleus with the genetic code, right? So NF-kappa B, it's a little molecule that attaches to the cell membrane that we call nuclear factor. And it travels all the way to inside the cell and tells the DNA through RNA to make cytokines. That's what it does. That's his job. Whenever we have inflammation. That's why it's a special cell. So, curcumin is NF-kappa B blocker. But we don't want to block inflammation if this inflammation is onto something. So that's why we need to deal with the damage. Taking curcumin and having like an infection, any infection, it won't help you. Actually, it will make it worse because you are preventing NF-kappa B from sending a signal to the immune system and have all these neutrophils coming in and cleaning the damage. Anti-inflammatories, prescription anti-inflammatories, what they do is they basically, we have different types, yeah, but let's talk about non-steroid ones, NSAIDs. What they do is, among the cytokines that you see, there is IL-1 beta, IL-6, IL-8, EGE1, COX1, COX2. So you have you can choose your poison. Some block PG1, but if you block PG1, you also block PG2. And PG2 is also involved in resolving the inflammation. So if you block PG1, you're going to block PG2. There's some that just block COX1, like aspirin. Some block both C1 and COX2. But all these things, chemically done, have consequences. They're designed to just block one little process in the body that was designed by the creator. So they're trying to do what? So, and besides that, turmeric is an effective for cancer. If you are taking chemo, curcumin and chemo work synergistically. Actually, if you do the right doses of this, you might be able to reduce the chemo dose. There are many studies published on this. Actually, a lot of them funded by the NIH. But again, it's not desirable that you reduce the chemo dose because they have a quota. How much they're going to sell? More or less? And then, CoQ10. Why do I like CoQ10? Well, CoQ10 is an antioxidant, is made in the body, and unfortunately, a lot of people I see have the fake problem of high cholesterol. Cholesterol is not, high cholesterol is a fake problem created by people in the big pharma to sell statins. That's it. When I went to med school, it was accepted as normal for anyone to have the total cholesterol at like 250. No problem. Just exercise more, try to eat less meat and fat. Now, if your total cholesterol is 100, they will load you with statins. Do you know what statins are? We call it statins, yeah? But statins are coenzyme A inhibitor. So inhibits the formation of coenzyme A in the liver, which by each turns make CoQ10. Why do we need CoQ10? CoQ10 is directly involved in energy production. Inside the cells, I'm not sure if I have this right, but let's see. No, so I'm trying to make this. Inside the cells, we have this structure called the mitochondria. This is a big mitochondria. The mitochondria gets glucose and makes the energy currents of our bodies, ATP. How it does that? Because this is created by God. This bounces electrons through a chain that converts ATP into GTP into ATP. And the CoQ10 is in here to directly make that happen. That's how important it is. So if you're taking a statin, you are killing it. That's why people taking statin, not all, will say, I have muscle pain. Because what are the organs in the body that use energy the most? Brain, eyes, liver, kidneys, and muscles. You don't feel anything in your brain yet, but we have a high rates of dementia, especially those in cholesterol lowering therapy for a long time. So that's why I like CoQ10, because I see the problem. I see that the population is being drugged with cholesterol lowering drugs, but we need to replenish the CoQ10. Otherwise, there's no energy. We never saw so many men with impotence. There's nothing to do with CoQ10, but it has to do with statins. If you lower cholesterol to like low levels, we don't have the raw material to make testosterone. As simple as that. And then, the first company that released the first statin, a few years down the road, came up with Viagra. Is it a coincidence? Are these people innocent? So I don't think so. So I like CoQ10 because of that, but because also it has a great impact on heart failure patients because it helps Heart failure, simply put, is the heart muscle doesn't have the strength to pump blood out. Why is that? Because there's no CoQ10 inside the heart cells to create energy to do the pumping. There are other factors too, high blood pressure and stuff. But, is a good supplement for HFM, which also fish oil is great. So, and also helps the inside of the vessels. So I like an antioxidant package. I like vitamin D. I like curcumin. I like coenzyme Q10. Those are the big in fish oil, the things that I take myself. Before I go into the questions, if you have any, Professor Gary requests me to talk a little bit of scalar fields.
Yes.
I do use scalar fields in the office, and scalar fields was actually first seen by this gentleman, Maxwell. Because of Maxwell, Einstein could formulate his general theory of relativity, because that these equations allows us to have a better mathematical understanding of how electromagnetism works and propagates. So he was the first to discover that an electromagnetic field will generate the so-called scalar field. The scalar field, and we have an expert here, it's not in scalar, but in, let's say this is a wave and two waves, so one like this one. So this is the high and this is the lower band. We call this out of phase. So it's two waves, 180 degrees out of phase, that creates a field. This field is able to carry information like frequencies, electricity, medicine, and this guy here was the first to actually, he had a patent in 1900, 1901. He was able to transmit energy wirelessly from point A 2 miles down the road to point B. But then we have a problem as well. Do we want free energy? So this got completely discredited because it's basically, a way to provide free energy to the world. So the use of scalar waves in medicine is not like a very old thing. It's actually new. We're still learning about it. See, this is the two waves out of phase that I mentioned, creating a field of energy that goes through metal. Distance doesn't have any influence. I can have a transmitter here and another transmitter in Hawaii, and the energy will be the same. It doesn't get blocked by metal or anything. So, like I say here, it has no magnitude and no direction. That's why we need to use a transmitter and a receiver to imply a direction to the field, especially in medicine. And we can put signals inside the scalar wave that will help to treat disease. One thing that I observed in people doing scalar is we got blood pressure reduced. But we didn't know. It was just, we noticed because a number of patients came to me and said, I feel tired, after scalar treatment, there's no way. And all of them taking hypertensive medication. And so we lowered the dose, problem solved. And of course, measuring the blood pressure. And they said, I never had that blood pressure before, even with medication. Because the average people taking high blood pressure medication, they take basically maybe 1, 2, and 3, or 4 different drugs, and it's still, high, because they don't address the problems that is inside the vessels. So, some of the benefits of and property of scalar fields, they do travel faster than light. That kind of contradicts Einstein general theory of relativity. But through a few measurements, we are able to say that it's actually 1.5 times faster than the light. It seems to have no influence in terms of space and time. And that's what the medicine comes in. We can make things into the water, and then the person can take it. And we have seen that for some reason increasing immune function in mammals. So there is a lot to learn. We're still learning, but I think there is a bright future for Instiller in medicine as we learn more. And then